ain't trying to kill me, bro. They trying to kill me. They trying to kill me. I'm telling y'all the truth.
Brother, I think that's okay. You've done been gone.
They trying to kill me, y'all.
A Mississippi man faces murder charges after deputies found a woman's body in his big rig here in our viewing area. We first broke this breaking news story Wednesday night along I-70 right there at the Ohio-Indiana state line. The victim, Shanae Robinson, was from Indy. Deputies said the driver admitted killing Robinson before he tried running from them.
He watched her take her last breath. That's not a line from a script. That's what a 38-year-old truck driver told police he did, standing in a parking lot off Interstate 70, just feet from a state line that split 2 counties, 2 states, and 2 separate police departments that would have to work together in a matter of hours to figure out what actually happened to the woman lying inside his semi-truck. Because here's the thing. When deputies first got the call, they thought they were looking at a car crash. A semi had gone off the ramp connecting US 40 to westbound I-70, right where Indiana turns into Ohio. Routine, tragic, but routine. A trucking accident. Until the driver started talking. And what he said didn't match a crash at all. Before we go further into this one, I need 30 seconds of your time. Every single case we cover on this channel represents a real person who is no longer here to tell their own story. Shanae Robinson can't correct a record if we get something wrong. She can't push back if her story gets flattened into just another headline. That's on us. That's on you and me, sitting here together. If you're new here, hit subscribe and tap that bell, because cases like this one develop fast, sometimes within days, and I don't want you missing the moment new information breaks. And if you've been here before, you know what a like does for a small channel like this. It tells the algorithm that stories like Shanae's deserve to be seen. That's not nothing. That's how her name stays in front of people, instead of disappearing into a local news cycle that moves on by next week. Okay, let's get into it. Shanae Robinson was 36 years old, and if you walked into All Stars Barbershop on 56th Street in Indianapolis any day for the last decade, you probably would have met her. She went by Mocha the Barber. Not just a nickname, a whole identity she built with her hands. One client at a time, for 10 years in that same shop. That's not nothing either. 10 years in the same chair means 10 years of showing up, of building trust, of people requesting her specifically because of how she made them feel, not just how she cut hair. When the news of her death reached the shop, one of her co-workers, a barber named Terry Gray, described her like this: probably one of the coolest people you will ever meet. Fun, funny, crazy, in the way people mean when they love someone. Lovable. He called her little sis. He said she was a sister in the barber shop. Customers who came in that day, expecting a haircut, found flowers on her station instead. That's the kind of detail that tells you everything about how a person moved through the world. People don't leave flowers at an empty chair for someone who kept to herself. So hold that image. A woman who spent a decade building relationships one appointment at a time. Someone described as lovable by people who work beside her every single day. Now put her in a semi-truck cab, hundreds of miles from that barbershop, at a travel center on a state line, with a man investigators say she knew. That's where this gets complicated. And I want to be really careful here, because this is exactly the kind of moment where true crime storytelling can go wrong. We do not know, publicly, right now, what the relationship was between Shanae Robinson and the man now charged with her murder. Police have said he knew her. The sheriff overseeing the investigation used the phrase, "the female in the truck who he knows." That's it. That's the extent of what's been confirmed. Was she a passenger on a longer route? Was there a personal relationship? Was this a work arrangement of some kind? We don't know. And anyone online claiming they do is speculating, not reporting. What we do know is what happened in that parking lot, because he told police himself. Here's the timeline, and I want you to sit with how strange and how deliberate it is. Wednesday night, around 8:15, Wayne County, Indiana deputies get dispatched to what looks like a fatal crash. A semi has gone off the ramp near the state line. That's the story on the surface. But almost immediately, something doesn't add up. The driver isn't at the truck. Witnesses say they saw a man leave the crash scene on foot and walk toward the nearby Petro Travel Center. not stumbling away in shock, walking with purpose toward a building with a shower. Deputies track him down at the travel center, and according to a Petro employee, he had already gone inside and showered. Think about that for a second. A man just involved in what should be the worst moment of his life, a fatal crash, and his first move is to clean himself up. That's not the behavior of someone in shock over an accident. That's the behavior of someone trying to erase something. And then he started talking while he was in the ambulance, being treated for what turned out to be minor injuries. He made statements to first responders that led investigators to believe Robinson's death had nothing to do with the crash at all. That's the pivot point. That's the moment to stop being a traffic fatality and became a homicide investigation spanning 2 states. The man's name is La David Jaron Shaw, 38 years old, from Jackson, Mississippi. And when deputies tried to take him into custody, he didn't go quietly. He fought. He had to be tossed multiple times. AK-9 bit him during the struggle. He damaged a patrol cruiser. Even after he was shackled and moved to a second cruiser, he kept kicking, kept lunging at officers. This is a person who, minutes earlier, according to investigators, had already confessed to killing someone, now expending everything he had left physically resisting arrest. Ask yourself what that tells you about his state of mind in that moment. Not remorse, not resignation, a fight response, all the way to the end. Now here's the part of this case that stopped me cold when I read the court documents. According to the probable cause affidavit, Shaw admitted that he killed Robinson because she would not, in his words, shut up. He told investigators he strangled her with his hands. And then, and this is the detail that I think reveals more about his psychology than almost anything else in this entire case, he put his boot on her neck and watched her take her last breath. Sit with that phrasing. Watched, not a panicked act followed by immediate horror. Watched. That word implies presence, awareness, a conscious choice to stay in that moment rather than flee from it. And then, after that, he made another choice. According to investigators, he crashed his own semi-truck into the ditch deliberately to stage her death as something that happened in a wreck. Not a moment of panic, covering his tracks in a blur. A sequence. Kill her, then construct a story a crash scene would tell for him. The sheriff investigating this case said something that I think is the key that unlocks what actually happened that night. He said there was some sort of argument, some discussion in the truck, when it had stopped at the Petro for repairs. Repairs. That's a detail easy to miss, but matters. This wasn't a random encounter at a random location. The truck broke down or needed maintenance, and while it sat there, something between these two people escalated into violence. We don't know what the argument was about. We may never know unless it comes out in trial, but we know the setting. A confined space, a forced stop, nowhere to walk away to, or so it seemed. Except notably, he did walk away right after. Authorities had confirmed one specific detail publicly. She was not shot. Beyond that, and beyond the account in the affidavit, the official cause of death from the autopsy has not been released. So here's a question worth sitting with. If the affidavit count is accurate, and Shaw described strangling her himself, why crash the truck at all? Why go through the trouble of staging a wreck if you've already essentially confessed the method to your own choices, walking away, showering, drawing the very attention that led investigators to you within hours? Was the crash an impulsive attempt to buy time? Or was it something more calculated, an attempt to control the narrative even after the act itself was already done? Because those are two very different psychological profiles. One is panic. The other is someone who believes, even in the aftermath of violence, that he can still manage the story. Shaw is currently being held without bond in Preble County Jail, facing charges of murder, tampering with evidence, and resisting arrest. No trial date has been set. The investigation, involving multiple sheriff's offices and coroner's offices across 2 states, is still active. So here's what I want you to think about before you go. We have a woman who spent 10 years building a life around trust, around people choosing to sit in her chair week after week because of who she was. And we have a version of her final hours that, if the affidavit is accurate, ended with an argument in a truck that had stopped for repairs, and a decision, not a single impulsive act, but a sequence of decisions that ended her life and then tried to hide how. What turns an argument into a killing in the space of minutes? What does it mean that someone can strangle another person and, by his own account, watch it happen rather than look away? And what does his fight with police afterward tell us about whether this was a man overwhelmed by what he'd done, or a man who, even in custody, was still trying to control the outcome the same way he tried to control the scene of the crash? I want to know what you think. Drop your theory in the comments. Do you think the crash was panic or premeditation dressed up as panic? And if you haven't already, subscribe to Psychology of Crime, because we go deep into cases like this one, the human mind behind the headline, not just the headline itself. Turn on that bell so you don't miss where this story goes next. We'll be watching this one closely, and so should you.